gather round for urban myths. Hush now, city kids. When it came to me after so long, I didn't have no choices in the streets where I was from. When I think about the pain, I didn't have no choices, I took what I had sworn. Hush now, city kids, gather round for urban myths. Hush now, city kids.
Good evening, welcome along to Geordies here, Geordies there on NUFC Matters. Full panel tonight. Good evening to Stu, Steve, George, Steve, Alwaleed, Mitch and Kevin as we talk for an hour about what's going on at Newcastle United. And Stu is sitting in a lofty position tonight because as often we have a little bit of banter backwards and forwards prior to coming on. We don't plot the shows, as you know, but Stu always strikes me as someone who's quite calm in moments of crisis. And I wouldn't say we've got a crisis at the club, but I'd say sometimes we'll have a crisis on that Twitter, that social media app, which a lot of people now call X, of course. I'll end up calling it Twitter for the next 4 or 5 years because I'm that kind of age. But it just causes absolute mayhem, and Stu often has or Mitch has a calming influence on our fan base and a way of speaking to people. So, Stu, you made some notes today. Over to you.
I did. It's something I do every couple of months, when rather than just come on and let the emotion take over, I try to have a bit of rationale to it and write a few things down. So, again, a lot of it's aimed at some of the things that were on Twitter, the knee-jerk reactions. A lot of it was over the top. All of it was incorrect. And it just highlights there's some self-entitled pricks that embarrass the majority of the fan base. Sorry for that use of that word. But these are some of the things that were written that I've read today and last night. It was our worst performance under Eddie Howe. It was our worst result under Eddie Howe. The word that used that really rankled me, and it was by someone who should know far better, wrote the word, he despised the substitutions. It was also said that Eddie Howe should be sacked. We should get Mourinho in. Again, there was singling out of individual players. Our defence is shit. We bottled it. Pope is rubbish. If ASM was playing, we would have won. All of this goes back to one thing I wrote was fine margins. First of all, we don't obviously learn or listen to what Bruno said last week. You know, it shows that it does hurt them, it does care. And yes, I understand constructive criticism. If it is constructive criticism, no one's above being criticised. And not everyone agreed with some of the things I tweeted, and that's their opinion as well. But when you make it personal, if the players weren't trying, then fair enough. But they did, and they got beat. You know, I mean, we got beat off a Liverpool team that most people think will finish above us. The two words that I've used are fine margins, and you can then start looking at what are the fine margins. Can I define them in a bit more detail? So, if Trent Alexander had been sent off, as he rightly should have been, the game would have been different in our favour. And there's a lot of ifs here, but if Barnes had crossed to Callum Wilson instead of holding on for that bit longer, we would have scored there out to sight. If Alisson hadn't produced an excellent save, we were 2-0 up. If Miggy's shot was a few inches inside the post instead of hitting the post, we're 2-0 up. If the ball hadn't hit Botman on the arse, we would have won. And it's got nothing to do with the substitutions. It's just football. And honestly, I think people think this is the first season they've watched. And going back to the word, and I won't use the word, but the entitlement among the fan base is really, really bad. And sometimes I feel we don't deserve to do better because there's such a overwhelming reaction. So the way I look at it is, in reality, it was a freak result. Isak was starved of service. It showed Liverpool are more streetwise than us, the game yesterday. After the red card, we ceased our intense style of play. And to me, that was the main reason. We tried to manage the game out by passing backwards and forwards and sideways and everything else. And we tried to make the extra man count by doing that. And there was no passing with purpose. And I genuinely believe if it's finished 11 versus 11, we would have won that game comfortably. And Liverpool sat back and they produced what's now called the low block, same as Bournemouth did last year, same as Leeds did last year, same as West Ham did last year. There was about 4 or 5 teams that we didn't beat at home. Liverpool are better than all of them, yet we still should have won. Núñez, with 2 finishes, he hasn't shown before in his whole Liverpool career. You get, at the end of it, you've got Klopp saying it was the best result they've ever had, better than the 4-3, the 4-0 when they come back 3-0 down against Barcelona. It was really was a freak result. But now I'm going on to the positives, which is what we should be doing on here. Gordon has proven to be the player we on this channel have predicted he would be when he was berated by the same knackers, the same demanding knackers that think Eddie Howe isn't up to the task. I've said it before and I'll say it again. We are blessed that he is our manager, but he isn't infallible, and he will be his most harshest critic. He doesn't need, I better not say Dave from wherever it was last time in case he gets upset. You know, it doesn't need someone saying, oh, he shouldn't be in the job. He will analyse himself, he'll analyse his own performance, and that will benefit us. He learned when we got beat 4-0 at Leicester. He learned when we got beat 5-1 at Tottenham. He learned when we got beat 3-0 at Villa. And I'm sure a 2-1 defeat Liverpool will overcome it. Yes, it's frustrating. Yes, I was annoyed. Yes, I was screaming at my TV to push further, stop sitting back because they will hit us on the counter-attack. But it's happened. And Tonali looks like he's adapted quickly. So that's another positive. What a season he could have, because he's already shown glimpses of being a standout player. 2 of our toughest fixtures are out of the way, when we're actually 2 goals better off than we were this time last season in the corresponding fixtures. So if it does come down to goal difference for European places, those 2 goals might make a difference to us. Another positive is some players aren't fully in their stride yet. They will improve, and therefore our results will improve. And irrespective, I know I've been the one that's saying buying players for the here and now, but our squad is better than it was last year. So we should do just as well, if not better. And we've got coaches and players capable of putting a long and beaten run together. They showed that last season. We need to be getting behind them. And remember, especially when it comes to singling players, especially off the standard of Bruno Guimaraes, form is temporary, class is permanent. He will rise again and we will rise again. So that's what I wrote down today.
Excellent, mate. Really good. And it is always good to sit and reflect. I mean, I reflected quite quickly last night, and I had my say on the fans forum, but I genuinely think the same as you. I think, unfortunately, sometimes when you're up against 10 men, it's such a difficult thing to break down. And you've got to credit Klopp, and you've got to credit him for the way that, you know, he controlled the narrative, he changed things, and then he brought Núñez on. And Núñez won't have 2 better finishes in a game like he had yesterday. No. It was absolutely superb. And it's one of those things, you come to it. And I agree. I think I said yesterday on the show last night, I said, you know, ultimately, look at it in the cold reality of day. We're actually better off in the results so far. Yes, we got beat against Liverpool at home last season and this season. Yes, we got beat away at Man City. Yes, we beat Aston Villa at home. Exactly the same results as last year. And for me, there's no need to get carried away and go daft. But unfortunately, that's what, you know, certain people do. And why they do it, I really don't know. Are they drunk? Are they under the influence? Who knows? But, you know, are they simply looking for clickbait? You know, like that account did when it attacked Bruno last week. Is this what it's all about in life now? Getting likes, getting retweets, getting reposts. If it is, just do it without mentioning Newcastle United, because
what it started all off, Steve, there was and I won't even mention, there's a Twitter page with a big following, and basically it was clickbait and it was instigating a pile-on to Eddie Howe, asking people to rate his substitutions out of 10 or something like that, and it was purely aimed at creating negativity, and Newcastle supporters shouldn't be doing that. Yes, maybe he did make an error, but for me, taking Joe Linton off, he was in. Tonali had a great game, but he was blowing out his backside. And when he come off, you don't know what they know before they make these decisions. And had Wilson scored, then that's it. Had Miggy scored, but there's loads of ifs, and that's what football's about. And that's why we love it, and it frustrates us in equal measures at times. So we just have to accept it. We got beat, but we're going to win a lot more than we'll lose this season. And the 3 teams we played at the start of the season, they all beat us last season. And yes, we beat Villa at home, but we beat them at home again comprehensively. And now we go and run of fixtures. West Ham showed Brighton aren't the team that everyone was bigging them up to be. We have a coach and staff that will be doing their homework now, and they'll be determined to get things back on an even keel. And I think this will hurt the players as well, because it is embarrassing, 10 men against 10 men for an hour. But they've got professional pride, and thankfully they've got the talent to make sure that we will come back fighting, and they'll come out swinging. And I can see it's going along and beating run from now.
And Steve Middlemiss, yes, football is for opinions at the end of the day, and everyone is entitled. But when you're having a pop at the club on social media behind a lot of these accounts are faceless accounts, we saw what happened last week with Bruno, and it affects the players. And if you think as a supporter that you're entitled just to have a pop at a player or have a pop at the manager who done so much for the club in a short space of time, and it's it's all right to do that. I just think it's wrong. I just think it's wrong. By all means, go to your local pub and see your mates and have a bit crack with the lads down the pub and vent your spleen there. Why do you go on social media, type 160 characters in and have a pop where the players can read it? And you know what I mean? It does affect the dynamics. Bruno came out and told you that last week, and that's exactly why people shouldn't have done it this weekend. But again, it's people on Twitter. It's becoming an absolute nightmare, and that's what's changing the face of football behind the scenes. Steve Wilkinson, good evening. What's your views on all of this?
Well, I've put my bit on the undername. My name is Trusting Eddie, because he couldn't win yesterday. If he left Anthony Gordon on and left Isak on, and with the same result had happened, he would have been slated. What he did was make the same substitute changes 5 minutes later than normal. Actually, it's usually about 65 minutes when he's taken off Isak and Gordon and brought on Barnes and Wilson. He's done it in the other 2 games. It came off 2 weeks ago when we were playing Villa, and we were 3-1 up at the time, and they came on and got two more goals between them. If the same thing had happened yesterday, we're chasing the game, trying to get well. No, I wouldn't say chasing the game. We're 1-0 ahead, and if we'd sat back and just defended, he would have got slated for that as well. If he'd taken a striker off and brought another defender on, he would have got slated for that. So he made the change that produced goals the other week when we weren't getting that second goal. So praise to him for that. And it nearly came off. If Barnes' pass had been slightly behind where it was, it would have been an identical goal to the one he got against Villa, Wilson. So I've got no criticism for that at all. But that's where he's getting the criticism for the substitutions. The only one I think I would have made in terms of substitutions was when they brought Harvey Elliott on. I think maybe we needed a fresher pair of legs in midfield at that time, and maybe that was the time to bring Anderson on rather than later to put that area, strengthen that area, because they'd already sacrificed a forward with Luis Diaz when Van Dijk got sent off. So we maybe didn't need 3 up front. So we could have. Maybe Miggy, although he nearly scored 2 fantastic goals. That's the fine margins that Stu's talked about. That he has a fantastic shot. It bounces against the post. He does that great run, and nearly gets. He could have got goal of the month again, like he did last season on 2 occasions yesterday. And the fine margins is he hit the woodwork twice and it went out. Núñez hits the post and it goes in. It's fine margins, and it was fine margins last week. I used that expression against Man City. If that shot from Alvarez had been maybe 2 inches nearer to Pope, he would have parried it wide. And so it's still fine margins, and we've lost against 2 of the top teams that'll be there or thereabouts next season, as they were last season. So it doesn't worry me at all at the present situation, and I think as we go forward, we've got nothing to worry about.
No, definitely not. Fine margins is definitely the go-to word today, I think, for this. George, we had your views, of course, last night on the fans forum. How are you feeling 24 hours later?
Same. Happy that we'll move forward after that. And I look at it in a football sense and in a fan's sense. The only bit that bothers me about the fans is that I don't know how many of you have done it, but I've actually been in the ground when we've been beaten and our fans have applauded away players off the pitch. Do you think we'd get that today? I'm not sure we would. And that bothers me. That's a dynamic I could do without. The most recent example, which some of you might have been there, was when Vardy was about to break Shearer's record of 12 goals in 12 consecutive matches. And he was on the pitch at St James's Park for Leicester when Leicester were winning the league. And he did it. And I think even he was surprised that when he was substituted, he got a standing ovation. Now, do you think we'd get there at the moment? And you're right, Steve. It's the poison that some people drip in on here and other places, on Twitter rather, and other places, that kind of spoil that, and that spoils it for me. Back to the match. What we're talking about. For me, it was fairly straightforward. When I look at it back again, we had a manager. I hate to say it, a good manager. Oh my God, that's like poison on my tongue saying that Klopp's a good manager. Anyway, he gambled like any good manager would. He's got 10 minutes and he's 1-0 down. So what does he do? He puts his best attacking player on. He doesn't defend. He's thinking, well, all right, we might lost 2-0. We might lost 3. But at least we're going to have a go. And that's what he did. He just gambled, and the gamble paid off. And you're absolutely right as well, Steve. Add the fine margins to all of that. It was still a good game. Still a good game. So for me, it isn't a disaster that people are making out. And on television today, there was a little bit on BBC at lunchtime, which was awful. But we'll bounce back. That's where we're going. For goodness sake, all of you out there that are enjoying this for the first time, I've had 76 years of it. And sometimes it's, well, no wonder I've got no hair, because I was about to say, well, I'll tear my hair out. Well, it's too late. It's already gone. But you know what I mean? It's just, and it's so positive for me at the moment. So please, please, please just enjoy it. Have a good time.
If you want to be depressed, get yourself down to Goodison. They've got a big fine, maybe points deduction coming in October, and the bottom of the league. So if you want to groan and mumble, get yourself down to Everton. Steve, good evening, mate. Steve,
hiya,
what's your views?
Well, I mean, very similar to everybody else in terms of the reaction to the defeat. I think I understand where people come from when it's disappointment, but then it gets wrapped up into abuse and it gets into name calling, and immediately everyone who they consider has had a bad game is the worst player since sliced bread, etc., etc. I mean, let's look at the game itself. The game was excellent. There was some fine football played. It needed 2 really good teams to put a performance in like that, and I thought that we dominated all the way through. I mean, the sending off. Let's take the booking first. Did the referee react a little bit too quickly to what Trent did, which was basically just throw the ball back on the pitch in a fit of pique, if you like? He thought he should have had a free kick, so he threw the ball on, expecting it to be a free kick or implying that it should have been. The referee quickly reacted, which meant that when he did pull back one of our players, the referee was then in a quandary, and we talked about referees last week and what can happen. And he didn't send him off. He didn't book him. So that was one of those margins that completely out of the hands of Eddie Howe. Then you get the sending off, and the length of time it took for the player to walk off the pitch. I was more annoyed about that than anything else when it got to half time. Which was absolutely ridiculous. I mean, the referee then just stood and just took mountains of abuse from the Liverpool players. Where's the authority gone? That for me was really annoying. We lost a little bit of shape in the second half, but we kept going. We kept moving forward. And as you say, those fine margins are you hit the inside of a post, and then they have a breakaway where it comes off the back of one of our players, and the ball ends up in the back of the net. That's football. That's what you have to put up with. I think this season is going to be an interesting season. I don't think it's going to be like last season, or rather the season before, where you had 2 teams that are skating away with it. I think that the teams at the top are going to take points off each other. You know, I can see. You know, yes, we've lost points against Liverpool and against Man U, but I can see Chelsea losing points against Liverpool. I can see Liverpool losing points against Man U, etc., etc. This is the way that I think the game is going to be. It's going to be a really, really interesting season, and we just, as you say, we just got to stick it out. We've just got to carry on playing the way that we Eddie has designed us to play. He'll learn from it. He'll learn from and he'll analyse the things that he perhaps thinks didn't go wrong. We've talked about his game management before. And I suppose with that comes the substitutions, the timing of the substitutions more than anything. Or do you make a substitution regardless, or do you make a substitution based on something that the opposition, which is a reactionary substitution? Kev's the coach. Kev, when we eventually get to the far end and Kev gets an opportunity to speak, Kev, I'm sure I'll be able to sort of give that a little bit more of a sort of professional approach to it than the sort of scattergun approach that I would give. But all in all, you know, third game of the season, we just carry on. We just keep going. I'm also, I suppose, my deepest concern wasn't the result, but it was the injury to Botman, and let's hope it's not too serious.
Yeah, Craig Hope came out this afternoon and basically allayed fears that it was anything more serious. And that's good news. So we obviously need to wait until Eddie Howe's press conference. I doubt anything will come out of the club until Friday. But not as serious. What's the worst case scenario? That could mean maybe he misses the Brighton game. He has a week off for the international break and he's back for Brentford. But we will wait and see. All speculation at the moment. But Craig Hope tends not to tweet something unless it's fairly accurate. Al-Walid, good evening. Your views, please, on the defeat yesterday.
Good evening, all. I believe there is too many right answers into this. I listened today to a new show, The Breakfast 40. Steve was really well done, and I like what you said. Sorry.
Thank you.
Sure. Welcome. I like when you said it's not about maybe. Eddie Howe changed the result, as it's Nunez when he come to the field. He really was lucky, and I think Eddie Howe in the NUFC TV he said something about. I believe he like said that they have maybe kind of better. Speaking of Liverpool, they have better substitution. They did the thing. Also, I like what Sergio says. It's like a gambling. Also, I will add to that. It's I think Eddie Howe was one to teach club a lesson, punish him with heavy result. For me, I think the most thing really was weird for me. Why after the change? It's not about the substitution, as it's what being told the players when they get in. Why there was spaces, why the defensive midfielder, why they are away from the defense line. I think the club tactics for these two goals, which are they so similar, it wasn't a coincidence. He really play on these spaces. We give them spaces at the end. So as I said, there is too many right answers. But I'm happy that we were so close to beat Liverpool. This was really great. We were the better team. Just I think they got very, very, very lucky.
Okay, Woods, I'll read your comment out. However, lads, he says, we've all called out players and managers, including all of you. Joe Linton, Bruce. Bruce wasn't a player for us, but I get where you're coming from. He says, we're all guilty of it, so don't try and say it's a small minority. I guess, Woods, what we're trying to say is, yes, when the team was horrendous under Bruce, I think we were all probably well within our rights to be vexing our, annoyance at the club and the way it was run. From my perspective, when the club is doing as well as it's doing at the moment, let's keep it off social media. I think that's what we're trying to say tonight. Mitch, good evening, mate. People expecting a rant.
I don't know if there's a rant coming as such, but I tell you what I want to know is what's the best thing about being a Newcastle fan at the minute, Steve?
You know what? I nearly opened the show with that line because you two were there, and I thought I'll keep it for the professionals. But you've stolen me thunder. To be honest, I think a lot of these people who've been having a pop, I think they've had about 10 bottles of Malverno before they tweeted last night.
Steve, interrupt. I've got that because I thought it was compulsory now.
I'm going to get this for a few
Cheers.
weeks, I'm afraid.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I think it really echo what everybody said. The thing, I was frustrated more than anything else last night. Frustrated to have lost to fine margins. I don't think enough's been said about that save from Alisson. Not just the save, but the awareness then and the upper body strength to get up and get to the rebound and scramble that around the post as well. That whole combination of game awareness and fitness and ability, you're not seeing many of them. He could have that shot another 200 times and he'd score 198 of the times. I think. I really do. And that just changes the whole complexity of the gear. But it was noticeable to me that at times when we were man up, we're so used to the helter-skelter of the press and the way that we play, we almost didn't know what to do. We had too much of the ball, almost. And that I found frustrating. I find it frustrating to lose to Klopp. I find it frustrating to lose to a club whose fan base I'm increasingly losing respect for. I used to have a lot of time for the Liverpool fan base, and now, because I think they're looking with one over their shoulder at us coming like a steam train behind them, getting a bit snide about it all, and that frustrates me, particularly in a country full of plastic Liverpool fans who some of them couldn't find Anfield on a map. And so that frustrates me. I was more frustrated than anything else. To openly go and use words, and it's not just faceless Twitter accounts, by the way, it's some who are very well known to use quite disparaging terms and language about some of the decisions made. I find very disappointing. There's no need for that. We are able to criticise, yes, and I'm happy to criticise where criticism is due. But I think we've got to come away at the minute trying to keep that level of positivity around, because, again, on another day, we win that game comfortably. One of the other two chances and goes 2-0 up, the game's dead. And if ever there was a bit of a smash and grab raid, to kind of phrase, to kind of something we used to get accused of last season, that was it. Chucking Núñez on, as my dad says, as a gamble, and it was a gamble that worked. I mean, he had now to lose. He's down to 10 men and he's 1-0 down. You might as well give it a go and lose 2 or 3. Does it show that we have things to still work on? Yes, I would say at times our defensive positioning it was poor. There's times, Burn, particularly when he moved inside for the second goal, I think his positioning was poor. I think there was times I could say Trippier almost at centre-back. And people were being dragged here, there and everywhere. Once Liverpool did very well when they went down to 10 to be organised, and the total were lesson in organisation, if anything else, because the more organised they became, the more disorganised we seemed and unable to make that extra man make a difference when we know it should have done. And that's the thing for me. It's frustration more than anything else. And I think to let that spill over to damning criticism using disparaging language, I think is poor. Yes, we're all guilty of it sometimes. Again, myself usually out of frustration more than anything else. So you have to temper it all bigger picture and all of that, we're still going in the right kind of direction and still playing good football. That was 2 good football teams to make that match. And so we still come away with things we can take from that are positives. But the negatives, well, that's what Eddie Howe's paid to work on, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And it's an interesting point, Kev, that Mitch makes about the tactics. It's what I was trying to say yesterday. Credit to Klopp. I mean, Howe's record against Klopp isn't very good at all. Newcastle's record against Liverpool isn't very good at all. You have to go back to the tactical master in Steve McLaren to find a home win, as Toon Stato told us on his summing up at the weekend. And another thing, dropping Salah into midfield. The work Salah did yesterday in the midfield was superb, and that comes down to what Mitch was saying about making us disorganised, and that comes down to tactics. That's Klopp getting them in the dressing room at half time and saying this is what we need to do. And a lot of the histrionics and a lot of the stuff, I did laugh at Mozza's comments, but I was so angry leaving the ground yesterday. That's me and Alan McKenzie to know. And a Scouser who wound his window down to have a go. I asked if he'd nicked that Range Rover, which is funny. That's Geordie humour, Scouse humour. They will have appreciated that. But again, Mozza's going on about Klopp. She can't stand Klopp, etc. But that's very clever, isn't it, by Klopp? He gets everybody focused on him so that the team can go and do what they want to do.
Oh, absolutely. He's one of the world's top managers. You got, like whoever said, he gambled. And that's what we do as a coach. We gamble when we have to gamble, when we're backs against the wall. And I completely agree with Mitch what you said. That Alisson save, that'll be the save of the season by the end of it, because that was truly world class. How that didn't go in, I've got no idea. But hey, that again, those are the very, very fine margins. And I say this all the time: football's a perfectly imperfect game, meaning the fine margins of the game, because we get very frustrated at something that looks beautiful to watch, beautiful to see, nothing comes of it. But then you could have a crap touch and somebody has it off his arse and it'll bobble in and we'll score. So it's a beautifully imperfect game in the world. That's why we get so frustrated. And again, agree with Mitch. I wasn't frustrated yesterday. I was just not angry, sorry, more frustrated, based on I thought we had a lack of intensity right from the start. I thought, the fact I heard the atmosphere on the TV, I cranked it up, I had the soundbar going, and the atmosphere was fantastic. And if we married that on the pitch, I think we could have went to town with Liverpool yesterday, and it didn't occur. I thought we were very slow. We kept the ball really well. I thought we'd done that part of the job fantastically well until we got to the final third. Once Van Dijk gets sent off, they again play, like Stu said, plays in a very low block, by the way, when you have to pull Salah in to make a 5 or whatever they played, or float around with Gakpo and that and all that sort of stuff. There was a lack of space in the middle third for that to occur. So we had to go sideways, we had to go backwards, we had to find a different way. But again, as we've discussed on this, we've got really no play to unlock that door. When we play against a team in a low block, and I've said this for years, once we play in a team against in a low block, then we struggle. We genuinely struggle. I would have, unfortunately, I love Mickey to death, but I would have pulled him at halftime, and I would have put Harvey Barnes on and kept Gordon on and flip-flopped them, or vice versa, whatever. Because I think Gordon had Trent Alexander-Arnold in his back pocket. To be fair, I would have ran at him. I would have kept giving him the ball. I would have forced the issue down that side. And yes, he could have been sent off. But again, that's a completely different game if Trent Alexander gets sent off at different times in the first half. Yeah, but again, you've got to get with the parity accounts and the true accounts. We've all got opinions. We've all got these standards that we uphold and how the game goes and all the rest of it. And it's just, unfortunately, it's sad. It's very sad for me. It's as sad as a fan base that they have to stoop that low to give criticism where sometimes maybe it's due. We can all shout at a player. Well, I've done it. Like we've said, everybody's done it. But, that's why I don't respond. I don't talk. I don't after games, or even that's why I come on these so I can let it out a little bit. I don't even say anything. I just let it out where I can and shout at my wife and shout at my missus and my kids and all that sort of stuff, and let it out that way, and I let it out in a different way. I come outside and whatever and let it out in a different way, being more positive. But yeah, I think moving forward, I think we'll be okay. It's just understanding again from a tactical standpoint. Not that Eddie's been outdone, but I think he's been outdone twice in a sense. From Pep, greatest manager in the world, and Jurgen Klopp, who's not too bad himself. So I think he's been genuinely done twice, and he hasn't been able to figure out a plan B or C. Yes, then you look at the substitutions that he's made. Weren't great times. You know, everybody's got an opinion about that, but you've got to understand that's within game moments. That's what you have to react to. Klopp made a triple substitution or a double sub, so you have to react to that of what players you have available. We can't just say, put this player on, put that player on, put this player on, whoever it is. You have to react to the circumstance of how the game flow is. So, yeah, look, we'll move on. It is what it is. I said we'll have 7 points by the end of this. Well, we've only got 6 less than that? 3. Sorry. So 3. So yeah, we'll move on. We'll move on to Brighton. I think their result was quite of a surprise this past weekend because I thought they would have been on par, not better than us or anybody in the Premier League, but I thought they would be very strong at home, and it seems like they've been not found out, but got done by West Ham. So, yeah, let's move on. We'll go forward, and we'll hopefully go down to Brighton and provide a response, which we need. And that's what the players Eddie'd be asking, and I ask for them, for my players, respond. And I don't think we've done that after Man City, and I think it has to happen now, going into Brighton.
Yeah, has to happen. Let's go to a quick ad break. We'll be back after this. A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at skipsandbins.com or telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website skipsandbins.com. Easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Big thanks to Mr. Vicky's sauces handmade in Cumbria. You can order them from their website, mrvickys.co.uk, or by telephoning 01768 210 102. A big thanks also to New Workwear. You can find them at newworkwear.com. They're an agile and dedicated workwear provider. Welcome back as well to United Travel. They are a UK coaches firm, and they are based in the Northeast. They've got 2024 tours, and you can contact them on 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. Email info@unitedgrouptravel.com. And they've got a website, which is unitedgrouptravel.com. There's no strangers on their tours, just people you haven't met yet. Big thanks to them for their sponsorship. Big thanks as well to Media Arts, and they supply all the video technology. If you want to become a member and get a cup, a pen, a membership card, and a scarf, then get your smartphone and put it over this QR code. It will take you straight to the membership pack. It's a £25 one-off fee. You can also go to NUFC Matters website and search membership pack to book today. If you want to help the channel, then subscribe to it by hitting the subscribe button. Hit the thumb up under the video to like the video, and click share to your other social media. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. Don't forget, we help the food bank on this channel. If you want to do so virtually, go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk and make a donation today. The Alan Shearer raffle is back on. 150 tickets, £1 a ticket. Win a limited edition signed Alan Shearer ball. Enter today at nufcmatters.com. And don't forget as well, the Kieran Trippier signed print is up for grabs. 99 tickets at £1. Get yourself on NUFCmatters.com. But that we've also got some great signed items up for sale on there, and all the usual T-shirts. And those of you who have got DAB radio in the Northeast, don't forget you can tune into the Tune Radio tomorrow morning, 7 o'clock until 9 o'clock. I'll be on there with Rick the Borough fan. And Dave Roberts, another Borough fan. We are still trying to get a Mackham to come onto the show, but should be an interesting show tomorrow morning. It was a lot of fun doing it, and thanks for the kind comments and those who text in this morning. Okay, as often we do get people tweeting us asking us to bring something up in the show. So Kevin, I'm going to come to you first with this one. Chris Hall said, question about tonight's show: would you take a trophyless season if it meant finishing in a Champions League spot? A lot of emphasis in the documentary that is shown on Amazon about how important it is. I would, as it builds the foundations, and I think trophies will come. So Chris wants to know, would you go for a trophyless season this season, Kevin, if it meant finishing in a Champions League spot?
No.
Champions League draw on Friday, of course.
No, I want a trophy, because that will build the foundation to go forward. That's what we're in the game to do. We're not here just to make the numbers up. We're here to win trophies. However that comes, by hook or by crook, whatever, FA Cup, whatever cup we're in, we need a trophy in that trophy cabinet, because it's getting obviously very, very bare, as we all know. But, again, my world, get the finals, get us runners up, whatever, but we're looking to chase gold. We're looking to chase and develop winners, essentially. And we need to develop winners. Look at Man City, they've developed winners over 15 years. And that's what we need to do. That's the benchmark, that's the standard. So I'll go and chase a trophy. Yes, if we finish in the top 5, top 6, whatever, that'll be a fantastic season. But I want a trophy.
Nothing wrong with that. Mitch, what's your views then? Because obviously the PIF and the owners are very, very clear, Champions League. And I think it might have caused a little bit of a problem, because you get one bite at it, and the money that's going to come with this Champions League run, whatever the run is, whether it's just getting through the group stages or whatever, there's going to be good money coming in. If we have a good cup run and don't win a cup and finish 6th, they're going to feel a bit miffed, I think.
My heart says trophy, but come to know and semi-understand the murky world of football finance over the last few years, my head says Champions League qualification is the must. You solve it by winning the Champions League. That would be fantastic. That would be probably a very Newcastle United way of doing things. Let's find the most obscure and obtuse route to satisfy both problems. Win the bloody thing. And that's the understanding how we need to make FFP work for us, how we need to build the sponsorships, the catching up we have to do on 6 clubs in particular, really relies on repetitive Champions League qualification. It seems to be the way modern football's going. If you look at the disrespect shown by many top clubs and managers to the cup competitions these days, and now the FA Cup coming under the potential auspices of the Premier League, and they're now already dropping replays and playing games in midweek. It's losing its prestige as a competition. It's being relegated. And so I think the owners would prefer Champions League every season, and the trophies will come around that once you've got an established squad. But of course, my heart says stick a piece of silverware with black and white ribbons on, and you'll probably not see me for a fortnight. You'll have to send the search parties out.
Al-Walid, Champions League at all costs, or would you like to see a trophy instead?
Well, I believe Newcastle ready for a trophy, and I hope we go far in FA Cup. يعني Newcastle King of Cup, and I believe this cup we can win it. Just need Eddie Howe need to do some little adjustment. Changing some little bit of stuff. I think he will reach some point, but he need a plan B, especially against the top teams.
Okay, Steve.
Oh, you know what? Mitch is right. If you look at the documentary and you hear the owners, their priority is Champions League. Their priority is the bottom line. It's the cash. It's then how they can then have that money to build the club and boost the club and build it and build it and build it. Get that momentum. It's the financial momentum that's then going to bring the success momentum, if you like. And I suppose it depends on whether people class finishing in the top 4 as successful every season. For me, there's one thing that's been hanging over Newcastle United now for 65 years, and that's a trophy. And I think if we could get that hoodoo off our back, I think that would placate an awful lot of the other problems that perhaps maybe some of the fan base have. Maybe we would no longer be screaming at players. Maybe we would think twice about screaming at players if we'd actually won something. And we realised that, we are not the perennial runners-up in everything and every time we go to Wembley or to a cup final. I would like to see that hoodoo taken off of Steve. I'd like to see a trophy. But I understand where the owners are coming from a financial perspective. But I don't think many Newcastle fans would simply be happy if we just qualified for the Champions League every year, because they would just be screaming that we qualified in 4th or 3rd or 2nd. Because to qualify in 1st place, would have had to win a trophy. And that's not what the question was. The question was a trophy or Champions League. We could always win the championship and get into the Champions League as well in one season, I suppose. But got to prioritise a cup. That's what Newcastle United is all about. We've got to get that off our back.
Okay, it's an interesting question. I mean, we've had this kind of question before, but obviously 3 games into a new season, it's interesting, and lots of people saying the trophy. George, are you the same? Would you like to see a trophy?
Yeah. Oh, it's a hard one because he was absolutely right. From a point of view of the owners and financial matters, Champions League's it. It's got to be it. It's the glue that'll stick it all together, in my opinion. The other bit of it, of course, is the head thing. I just don't remind you because some of you won't know. My first game in 1945 was FA Cup, February FA Cup. First leg notice against Barnsley. We beat Barnsley 4-2 at St James's, and then on Wednesday night the next week, lost the return leg 3-0. Now, the people in the Football League did that, or the FA did that, because the big clubs didn't like sharing their gate money. It was so many percent to the home team and so many percent to the away team. So they thought, well, we'll have 2 games, 2 legs, and they can keep their own money, and there's no argument about sharing. The only trouble is, in February in 1945, the bloody pitches were like ploughed fields, and they forgot about replays. They didn't even think about what you did with a replay. After the first leg, do you have a replay, or where do you have it? Do you have 2 legs in a replay? I don't think the organisation, the FA and the Premier League's got any better, to be honest. The lads are saying, what they're trying to do and are trying to do with the FA Cup's nothing short of a disgrace. It was one of the world's premier competitions, not just a UK one, and it's rapidly becoming a nothing. So, short answer to your question, I've got me head says it's got to be Champions League, but my heart would love to see something silver with black and white on it as well.
Okay, same question, of course, to you, Steve Wilkinson.
Yeah, I'm going for both, and there's no reason why we can't do both, because we're in a stronger position to do both than we were last season. We got to the Carabao Cup final, so we kind of, while we might have played the earlier rounds, we certainly did. And was it Tranmere or somebody we played in the first round with a few under-strength players? We've now got a better squad, and we can rest a good first team and still put a strong team out. So no reason why we can't get to the final again. And it was only one game we lost. So that didn't affect how we played in the rest of the league and getting into the Champions League last year. Same goes on the FA Cup. We put too many changes when we played Sheff Wade. And I think, again, this season we wouldn't have to do that because we've got a stronger squad. So I don't see any reason why you kind of go for both. I think, the big difference now is that going back to the days George was talking about and how important it was to win the FA Cup and how much it was respected globally, you didn't have the money involved in the same way. There wasn't 45 million for winning the league, like there is now for what the outcome of that is. So I don't see any reason why we're going for both, but I think we've got to look at the bigger picture, and I think that does mean Champions League.
Okay, Stu?
The simple answer would be both. But that's if you have to choose one or the other. Why can't we have both? That's the thing. But that's the green side of it. I have to agree with what everyone said there. With the head, financially, and being in the Champions League gets us recognised more globally, which brings money, etc. So, of course, it attracts better players, it makes it better teams. But I think most of us are of an age here where we're a bit romantic. And I think Steve said, was it 68 years since we last won a domestic trophy? So I think the last domestic thing that we put our trophy in was George's shin guards. So wouldn't it be nice to have a trophy to celebrate? We aren't accountants, and if you look at the Wenger out stuff, because they were just finished third or fourth year, it becomes stale and monotonous for them. Tottenham, yes, they're recognized as a bigger club now because of the Champions League qualification. But if you ask their fans, I'm sure they would rather have won a trophy at some stage. So it's a really delicate question, but there was 125,000 Newcastle fans there in February for the cup final. A fifth of them had tickets. So that tells you what the fans think about it, of what they think. We all want the I was there moments. And that's why I know we talked about it on Saturday on the professionals. You won't remember, Steve, so I'll remind you. It was like when we get Champions League games away, how many people will travel? And it's just I was there. And that's what supporting the club's about. That's what being a fan is, to celebrate the good times, not just to qualify each and every season for it. Of course, that'd be great and it'll make the figures look fantastic. But you want to sit back in 10 years' time, 20 years' time, tell your children, tell your grandchildren, I was there when Newcastle won that trophy. And of course, I understand all the arguments for head, but for me, I want us to win a trophy.
Okay, I want to finish off with the international story, and we'll start with you, Stu. You're smiling, you're beaming there. JC and Steve Clark managed to have a conversation clearly with Elliot Anderson and his family, and he's chosen Scotland. I think it's the right move. I think it's great for him. What's your view? He's happy to have him in a blue shirt.
I'm delighted to have him in a blue shirt, and he's played well every time he's come on this season as well. I think yesterday he's trying to get the ball forward and be direct and run at the defenders because we made it too easy for them to get the breath back because they couldn't live with us for the first half hour. And another what if I hadn't fouled the goal, likely to put us 2 up. It's a different game. But back to Anderson, I really think he can be a mainstay in that squad. He has power. He has presence. He's shown that he's not scared to mix. He's not fazed by I'm young and these are older, more experienced pros. I think he relishes it. And Scotland's very much like what Newcastle like, squad-wise, not ability-wise. Don't get me wrong, Newcastle would beat Scotland 9 out of 10. But the togetherness, the team spirit, and I think it'll be a seamless transition for him. And I'm quite sure they'll blood him in the first game because then he can only play for Scotland. The second game Scotland played in Cyprus will be 50th anniversary of the Scottish Football Association, and they're playing against England. Now, England could be, well, I would imagine they'd have someone who could be at Newcastle this week. Now, this might be a little pending prediction, or however you want to put it. Mr. Harry Maguire is strongly linked with us, and that's what I've heard from inside the club. Mr. Ashworth is trying to get him in on loan this season.
God, no.
Well, I'm not happy about that myself, but if he's injured, you don't know who comes out of the club now. You've seen it so many times, different journalists say different things, and you'll get 6 journalists saying 6 things, and only one is going to be right on it. But I've heard trying to get Maguire to reduce his, or take part of the salary, which in normal circumstances I don't see Man United helping us, but it might actually help them to get him out of the building.
Okay.
Whether that would be a good thing or not, but
Well,
that's
we'll
what
see.
I've heard in the last 10 minutes.
We'll see. Your sound has been playing up. I have let it go, but we're nearly at the end of the show, Stu. So we got what you were making. Nobody didn't hear what you were saying, which is fine. Just obviously internet issues tonight. Steve Wilkinson, Anderson. It's an interesting one. Going to Scotland, but I think Stu's right. I think he'll do really well there.
I think he will, and I think he'll get a game, which he wouldn't do for England. I think he hasn't come through the route of the younger England under 21s and things in the same way that Anthony Gordon has. I think there's a chance Anthony Gordon, on his current form, might get into the England team, England squad anyway, after what he's just done in the last few games, and particularly on Sunday. I think Southgate was there yesterday, wasn't he? Which
yeah. And
Pope
Pope always has one of them. Like, he didn't have a bad game at all yesterday, but he never plays his best game when he's there.
So I think it's good news for him. I think he'll relish he'll get a full game playing for Scotland, which he wouldn't get for England for a while. So it's great for him. He gets a full game, experience for us in some ways, playing in a full strength team. Great news, and I wish him well, and look forward to him playing against England, Wembley, in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, George, good move for Anderson to play international football for Scotland.
Absolutely. The Scottish bit of me is cheering, I've got to say, and from the boys' point of view, with Scotland, he'll have a long and interesting international career. With chances of that happening with England are remote, because sooner or later, players who live north of Watford have that on their back. Look at Phil Foden. Phil Foden should be a fixture in the team. He struggles to get on as substitute. And so Elliot Anderson would go into that lot. And that's not new. It's look at all the players we've had who should have had caps and didn't. You don't need me to name them. Jackie Milburn, Len White. Go back to Ivor Broadus. Ivor Broadus used to talk about he didn't get in the England team because of the Blazers. Who were the Blazers? The selection committee. No, for Elliot Anderson, right move, and he'll have a long and great career with Scotland. And I think actually Scotland might build on him if he keeps progressing the way he is. And not long before we'll see him as captain, I would think. So smashing, great, and good for the lad as well.
Yeah, Steve. I mean, he's playing for them at the right time as well. They've got a good manager, got a good coach in JC, and Scotland's doing quite well. It has to be said on the international scene.
Yeah, absolutely on the up. And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago when it was first mooted, and I think virtually to a man, we all said that Scotland was the better bet. I remember rattling off the names. I've just put them down on the side here. And, Bellingham, Saka, Grealish, Foden, Rice, Mount, Maddison, Phillips, Eze, Gallagher, Henderson, Ward-Prowse. That's who he'd be behind if he tried to break into the England squad. And we know that like you say, the England manager comes up and he watches, and he would have had an opportunity. But I don't think that opportunity would come this season with England. And the lad has to think of his career, and he has to think what's best for him. And I think it's a great chance. And I tell you what, it's a big boost for Newcastle United as well, because we've got another international in the squad. We've got a young lad who's going to learn. We've got a young lad who's going to be playing on the international stage. He's also going to have the opportunity in the Champions League stage as well. So I think from a football perspective, it's a win-win for Anderson and the football club and for Scotland.
Okay, Al-Walid, it's good to see him getting some international football.
Yeah, of course, it was just a matter of time that he joined the team. Happy for him, and it will help, of course, Newcastle as long as he doesn't have much time to play, and hopefully he do very well with Scotland. And looking forward to see him very big star in Premier League.
Mitch?
International football can only be very, very good for a young player developing his career. And that then in turn is good for Newcastle United. It'll expose them to different types of players, expose them to different types of conditions. And he could very quickly make a name for himself in the Scotland squad. He's got the talent and he's got all the ability. So, yeah, right move. And we will benefit from that. There's no doubt about that.
And Kev?
Yeah, I totally agree. Mitch took my words right out of my mouth. Developmental stage of his career, and again, going into like a random country on a wet Wednesday night to build a bit of character, build a bit of steel about himself, playing against different players and of the like, and playing in Champions League football, which again will develop him even more. And again, I mean, my great grandfather's Scottish, so I've got a bit of a Scottish heritage as well, by the way. So, I'm, happy for him to go there. He had no chance at England, but I'm all for the developmental phase of the game in his career where he is right now. And I think it's a brilliant move for him. And obviously Steve Clarke and JC see something in him where they can take their team forward, because Scotland are on the up. Not saying England aren't, but I'm just saying they're in a big transitional phase to get into the higher echelons of international football, and it can only benefit him, us, the club, the country, everything all the way around. So congratulations to him. It's a massive, big day for him. And let's see the fruits of that moving forward. And I would have Harry Maguire, by the way, as an experienced left-sided centre-half. Just drop that one in there.
You would.
Well, I'm sorry. If they can get Butman on a crutch, it'd be better than bloody Harry Maguire.
I think that's an argument for another day.
We'll have to have a fight about that one, but never mind. We'll leave that one.
Great stuff as always. Thanks to Kevin, thanks to Mitch, thanks to Al-Walid, thanks to Steve, George, Steve, and Stu. I'm back tomorrow night, 6 o'clock tomorrow night, with a Premier League show with Melly Barnes. Look forward to seeing you all then. Take care, guys.
Good night, lads. Good night.
We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.